Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to some more Warpforge as we plug on ahead with our kind of just card review of every card. I feel like now we're on rares, probably might as well do the commons as well. Honestly, part of my favorite thing of learning a new game is evaluating cards, so as you can tell, I take a lot of joy in doing this, although it tends to be a little bit exhausting, so I will try and keep my eye on the clock here and see if we can get this video in under an hour and a half, which was my last one. Thank you so much for all the support. As always, feel free to like and subscribe if you're digging the content. Feel free to comment if you've got some constructive, helpful feedback, or you're just loving stuff. I really appreciate hearing from all of you guys on what I can improve and what is going to be helpful for y'all. Yes, this is going to come out before the keyword sort of overview. It is coming, I promise. But I felt like because people are all over the Discord talking about like what should I build, what should I put in my deck, maybe even what cards should I get on my campaign, what are the rares that are really valuable. I just thought I'd give my 2 cents on what are some of my favorite rares and cards that maybe you might not want to make with a wild card right off the bat. Let's just dive in. Got to start with the Ultramarines. Sorry, that's my bias. Here we are. I'm a basic Ultramarines boy. Uriel, I mean, he's a warlord you start out with. He's totally fine. I think he's good in some aggro decks. I prefer to play Varro or Calgar. But he's certainly serviceable. I think his ephemeral card actually being able to clear 3 health units. It's something that a few warlords can do. Neurothrope does it well. Imhotep does it well. It is a real advantage in certain matchups. It's just going to be limited to those matchups. Octavia Infiltrator. Can't sing this guy's praises enough. 1 energy for this effect is just good. It's a targeted blind on a body. If you played at all with Ultramarines, you know that if you can get a nice free attack off a card that has really good ranged attack, go for it. So I really think most decks are just going to want this. You get to tack it on. It also helps smooth out Codex if you need some sort of odd numbered card to do that. Octavia Infiltrator is kind of your guy because you also just pair it with some other play, and it's really, really excellent. Sheltered Location. Don't have it yet. Give -2 range attack to all units in play until your next turn. The fact that this is all units is just a bit weird to me. So I don't think you should be putting this in your deck. Yes, it's 1 energy, and I guess you could kind of go more like melee heavy. I don't really think that's a thing in Space Marines personally, so I would not worry about Sheltered Location. Firstborn, on the other hand, is a premier 2-drop. It's got 3 health. The breakpoints of 3 health and 5 health, you'll see, matter a lot. And sorry, my allergies are getting to me. That's why I'm scratching my eyes and trying not to sneeze. 3 health is a little bit harder to clear than 2, obviously. 5 health is a little bit harder to clear than 4. And those are, I would say, specific breakpoints for certain units that you want. So this should survive certain warlords. Some it won't, but for the most part it will. And floor, you're going to get 1 damage up front, and then probably 2 damage on the back end. And I think that is totally fine for a 2-drop that does have a ceiling where you can get even more damage out of it. And that seems pretty dang good for a 2-drop. Excuse my scrolling, sorry. Okay, Point Blank Shot. Just a really efficient card. 2 damage, draw a card. You can't really want much more. Also, the art's really sweet. But this allows you to clear a 4 health unit with your leader, dealing 2, and this dealing 2. You're drawing a card, it replaces itself. That's great. Armored Support, already kind of sung its praises in the other video. But the fact that you can get cards outside of your collection, and a lot of them are the epics in Ultramarines that are excellent in terms of vehicles, and they're discounted. Right, you're only getting 1. There is an Aeldari card that does the same thing, except it's flipped. So you get 2 cards, but their cost is reduced by 1, I believe, instead of 2. Armored Support, I just think probably should be in most, if not all, Ultramarine builds. That's kind of my feeling, especially if you're free to play. This card really gets you some value. Eliminator, already talked about it. It went from an epic to a rare. I think it should be a rare. I don't think it should be an epic. You might be able to live the dream if you can set up a Vanguard defense or maybe buff this so that it just starts one-shotting things. but I just think at 3 health it's a little too fragile. Hero's Respite, totally fine card to play, right? Most card games have a 3 energy, 3 mana, draw 2, divination for you Magic players out there. You're not excited about it, right? But it's fine, right? Because it replaces itself and you get another card on top of it. So, especially if you're playing aggro and you really don't have many ways of card advantage, let's say with Uriel, pop one of these bad boys in your deck. That's totally fine. Okay, get to some of the exciting rares. Primaris Inceptor, and I keep screwing up the names. Apologies. 3 health, good breakpoint. 4 ranged, flank, flying. This thing comes in, maybe at 1-for-1s, which would be whatever, or it comes in, kills something, and then they got to trade, 4 ranged attack, because most things aren't going to be able to fly to punch it. Because if 2 cards have flying, they can melee attack each other. But if your card does not have flying, you got to ranged attack it. So that's a whopping 4 attack on a 3 energy card with flank. And as you'll probably know, all the flank cards are pretty good. Tyrannic War Veteran, 3/3/3 baseline, because the Warlord counts to that, and then it's got a little bit of upside, so when you're growing your collection like I am, it's a totally fine card to run. Honor Guard, again, just very good stats. 4 energy, 5 health breakpoint, like I was saying, so it's a little tougher to clear. You're going to need, at least 2 cards to do that. And sometimes that's not quite enough. And it's 4/4. You're getting a good bang for your buck. Sergeant Electius, you've eluded me so far. I also really love this card too. 4 energy, for 4 health, so it's definitely clearable, but you're just getting that blind up front. And then this thing just smacks really hard. So, I guess the floor is you're going to blind something and maybe deal 2 damage for 4 energy. I think that's okay. That's definitely passable, and then obviously it's got more upside than that. Trying to keep the pace up here, people. Storm Raven, you just got to have AoE capabilities, shall we say. You need to have the boys bringing the rockets and the bombs and all that good stuff, because they're just, whether you're going wide with Orks, wide with Scarabs out of Necrons, I guess maybe even wide with Tyranids to some degree, you just need ways of dealing AoE damage, and when you pair it with other damage cards, it's easier to clear potentially an entire board, right? If you use your point blank shot to get something to 2 health, then you Storm Raven, you've got a lot of direct damage out of that as well. And I just think you just probably want 2 of those in your deck. Likewise, for Inspired Retribution, which maybe we'll start working on the Forge here, which we have not touched yet. Inspired Retribution, unconditional removal, even though it's 5 energy, you want it, because you got to deal with hugely stacked Chaos units, you got to deal with hugely stacked Tyranid units, you got to deal with really good unkillable Lich Guards coming out of the Necrons. So you definitely want 2 of these. They also go up in value when you're playing either Marneus or Varro, because you have more ability to draw them or thin your deck. Specifically with Varro, you're able to pull stratagems out of your deck, so that's pretty great. Judiciar got downgraded from an epic to a rare. Great. Card's great. You should be running it. Can't really explain much more than I did in the other video. Inceptor Sergeant, excellent card. It's just really good curve topper. It's just a removal spell on a body. I'll keep saying it until you guys play it. It's excellent. Assault Centurion, I go back and forth on this guy. I mean, I think coming out of like budget or free to play, this is probably like the only 8-drop I would consider, obviously aside from the Redemptor Dreadnought. And there's a difference, right? There's a 7 energy guy, no Vanguard, no armor, but I think it's 9 range attack. I would take this guy over him in a heartbeat, because although it's 1 energy more, 2 armor is pretty chunky on top of 7 health, and you've got Vanguard. So if this thing just sits on the board, they have to deal with it, right? You can just look past the other guy, but the Assault Centurion's not going to let you do that. He's just going to start firing these weird, crazy-looking guns, and it's not going to be good for you. Pulsar Executioner. I feel like, unless the format's really, really slow, and maybe as the meta develops, we're going to want something like this in like your average Ultramarines deck. I like this when it's discounted. When it costs 8, it feels really, really good. When it costs 10, less so. But I think Marnia specifically can pull it off. I think any deck that's running the legendary card now, which I'll probably end up crafting by the end of my campaign, the one that that was added recently, where it's like I think it's all vehicles in your deck costs. Why am I even trying to guess it? Let's just look at it. Take off rares real quick. Yes, Battlefield Supremacy. Lower the cost of all vehicles in your hand and deck by 1. Draw a vehicle. So you're gonna get that discount on your repulsor from that, or you can just pull it with the 3 energy, draw 1, and then it reduces by 2. You can straight up put this in your deck. I think it's fine. I'm really sus of any card over 6. That's just especially with Varro or Marnius, where you can just always spend 2 energy to do something, or potentially even up to 4 with Varro. You don't really need stuff like this, in my opinion. So, all right, we're keeping it going. Let's rock and roll. Let's go Orks. All right, Gruck. I really like him. I think he's one of the stronger starters. I think the other guys are pretty strong too. Zach Strook's kind of a different playstyle, I would say, than Gruck and what's his face. But yeah, I mean, you'll start out with him. I think he's pretty good. Grot Bomb. 1 energy, deal 3 damage to a random enemy. So it's not quite a lightning bolt. It's a Grot Bomb. But 1 energy to deal 3 to a random enemy. Yeah, it can hit their Warlord. That doesn't feel good, but it's not a huge investment. So if it is truly just 3 to the face for 1, it's probably okay. And then sometimes you're going to hit their unit and you're going to be pretty happy. So I think Grot Bomb is totally serviceable. Cloud of Smoke. Blind a random enemy. Repeat this effect for each friendly vehicle. I don't think this is where it's at. I mean, unless we've really gotten some buffs that I haven't heard about to vehicles, I don't think Cloud of Smoke is that great, but let me know if I'm wrong in the comments. I give you permission. Orc Encampment, 2 energy. Give Camouflage and Armor 1 to your troops. I believe this used to only give Camouflage, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Camouflage honestly can be pretty relevant here and there. It's not the craziest keyword, and I should explain them as I'm saying them. My bad. This unit cannot be targeted by enemy stratagems until it attacks, right? So you do want to keep that in mind. So obviously it can die to AoE, it can die to people just attacking it, but they can't use spells, in quotations, on it until it attacks. And Armor 1 is fine. So if you've got a couple of units out and it's a really cheap spell for the most, stratagem for the most part, that actually seems pretty good to me. So if you're going the Green Horde, like going super wide, giving like 5 or 6 troops Armor 1 is not bad. All right. Oh, I already read that. These cards look the same in my mind. Okay, Slugger Boy. I think it's totally fine. So it's got that 3 health breakpoint, tied 1, so you get to play it on turn 2 or 4, depending on what you want to do. Great. Storm Boy. Tied 1, flying, 3 health. The fact that it's got flying gives it a little bit of a bump. Again, I think pretty good for those sort of go wide, buff them up orc strategies. Proper Killy. Your Warlord gains +2 melee attack and it can attack twice this turn. This just has Zagstruck written all over it. Just because he's already more like kind of just all in on sort of the Warlord combat strategy. In the grand scheme of things, I don't know how great this card is, but I think starting out, you're going to get some big damage swing turns. Just know that you're paying 3 energy to not affect the board more than that 1 turn. And if you're okay with that, fine, go for it. Shoot a Boy. Definitely one of the stronger orc cards and has a lot of synergies. It's got 4 health for 3 energy. That's a good break point. 4 range attack is definitely solid for what you're investing. And Mob, every time you do a melee attack, it triggers this effect. Obviously very easy for orcs to do. You're getting 1 damage to a random enemy. This is just such a good ability when you think about how easy it is for orcs to go wide. So you can do Green Horde 1 turn, and then when you're getting ready to attack the following turn, you just drop this guy, and then you've got like 6, 7 more random damage that's being flung about from this guy just shooting all around. So it may not be accurate, but it's gonna hurt. I promise you that. So that was like a weird orc ad. I'm sorry. Okay, Banner Knob. Adjacent units have +1 melee, +1 range attack. This guy's pretty fragile, right? And he's not hard to clear. His range is 2, so they're just going to do 2 and then maybe plus another spell. But again, if you're playing this when your board's already set up, you're getting your value up front. So if you just know that you're not going to just like put this out on an empty board because it's going to suck, and you only put it out on a board that is not empty, you're probably getting your bang for your buck. And that rhymed. We're just kind of in the zone tonight. All right, this is my last weird pat on the back. I promise. Burner Boy, which I think it has always been such a cool card, art-wise. I love it. If you control a Spanner or a Mech Boy Gazmech, deal 2 to 3 damage to all enemies. Okay, if you can set this up, right? Spanner, which is a solid card, and this guy is good if you're kind of running that vehicle build. This is great. 2 to 3 damage to all enemies when it comes into play. If you manage to keep that thing alive, one of these conditional things. I think if you're not running the package, you shouldn't be running the card. Because again, it doesn't have 5 health. Yes, it's got decent range stats, but you should just probably be playing other cards over it. But Burner Boy, if you've got the setup, that seems pretty good. Defcopter, this is one of the new ones. Tied to... it's got the 5 health breakpoint, which seems okay. I've been pretty happy with like what is a very similar version for Ultramarines. Except this has Tide. But it also has Unstable. And I gotta say, this is definitely a drawback. Obviously it is, but it really, you do feel it. Sometimes you get lucky. It's not that bad. But 0 to 3 damage to adjacent units is worth maybe avoiding. So I'm not huge on this kind of card. Maybe there's enough good vehicle synergies to go around. And I think like if you have maybe a good setup, this card is okay, but otherwise I'm not super thrilled about it. No mucking about. Excellent. Another unconditional removal spell. It's actually costs 1 less as opposed to the Ultramarines, but it is a random enemy troop, so it does require more setup. However, it's just extremely efficient, especially if you're going wide. And like, let's say maybe they just throw out a chunky Vanguard unit, then you just get to do this. You just get to shoot them, I guess, in the chest is what's going on here, and just take them out for 4 energy. It's like extremely efficient, which makes sense for the Orks. They're, if nothing, I would say probably efficient on the battlefield, although chaotic. Let's see, Sawbones, or Pain Boy Snickclaw. I'm already reading this. So 5 energy, 6 health, pretty beefy. Decent attack stats, and then, right, this is deal 1 to 2 damage if the target survives, heal. I mean, this is nice, right? Like, you can maybe pick off something, or you can try and heal something back up. This just seems decent. It does have 2 ranged attacks, so, like, it's not that hard to trade on this guy and not take a ton of damage, but they're going to have to work for it. It's 6 health. So, honestly, if I see this thing, I'm probably going to want to Inspired Retribution it. Because if it does live, you get quite a bit of value, in my opinion. You either pick off something small or heal. So I think that card's pretty solid. Right, the Rucka Truck Swig Buggy. Yeah, I think this card's solid. It does have Unstable, but you're getting this value off of the Bomb Squigs. If it lives, it's also just hitting for a lot. This is like Redemptor Dreadnought level, right? It's 1 less. So it seems... This is probably a vehicle I would consider. I guess that's the way I'll phrase it for you guys. Stormboy Strike, deploy 1 Stormboy for each enemy unit. It's conditional, right? So it does mean that you have to play to the board to get your opponent to play to the board to then Stormboy's Strike. Could see this as a one of, especially starting out in the Orc campaign, which maybe we'll have to do a little bit of a channel vote. Actually, now that I'm saying it, we definitely do it for what my second campaign will be. Yeah, I think 1 is fine. I would be really hesitant to put 2 of this card in my deck. Death Dread, definitely one of the bigger vehicles. Unstable, mob, deal 1 to 3 damage to a random enemy. This, again, if you're playing this and you've got the setup, it's going to hit like a truck, or I guess hit like a Death Dread in this scenario. But it's got the drawback. But it's got huge stats. I feel like this is a good curve topper. I wouldn't be upset if this was kind of like the end of my curve, probably. Same with Commando, although I think Commando is a little bit better. It's hard to really encapsulate how good a thing stealth is, and the fact that you can't interact with it, and it's just going to guarantee this 7 damage, right? And then it gets stealth again. I mean, this thing is pretty scary. I think some people are kind of down on it. You know, it doesn't affect the board until it attacks, but I just find this card pretty scary, personally. He is a Commando, so that's fair. Battle Wagon. Massive amount of health, 8 energy. Definitely want to be kind of suspect of these bigger ones. Lower the cost of random infantry in your hand by 2. This is just not an ability at this stage in the game, for the most part. And its stats are also pretty low for... I shouldn't say pretty. It's like really average, bordering on not good. It does have 10 health. But again, this sort of hits the board and they just go, all right, I'm going to kill you next turn. So don't think the Battle Wagon, as cool as it is where it's at. Sweet. Moving right along. All right, Madril. Solid starter for the Eldar. Definitely. Should I say definitely? I mean, I'm really partial to Anvir. And I think Zephyr guy, the legendary, he's got the 40 health, and he's able to clear on 3, which I think is fine. So I guess Madril probably is the weaker of the 3, but still I think a totally fine starter. All right, Guardian Defender. So I played a lot of Eldar during the alpha. And then I kind of dropped them, and I was definitely focusing on Marines a little bit more. You're getting a lot of value up front, right? It's only 1 energy, 2 health. Obviously, it's going to get cleared, but it's got Waystone, so that's fine. You're going to collect that Spirit Stone. It's also got Shuriken too. So if they don't clear it, this thing is actually attacking for 4, or attacking for 2 and living. And it costs 1 energy. I feel like Guardian Defender, especially with Madril when you're starting out, is just a really efficient thing, right? Maybe turn 1, you use your ephemeral card, you make it 2/1. Then turn 3, you make it 2/1, you play this guy, right? So I think Guardian Defender, at least in terms of your investment, is like pretty efficient. It's not going to win you the game, but it's going to get you maybe a little bit of advantage for what you're paying, which is probably what you need. Webway Incursion, it's a very classic Eldar card. Love the art. Give stealth to a friendly troop. Like I said, stealth is really good. I'm always hesitant to put stratagems in my deck that don't really affect the board, quote unquote. Like they're not dealing damage. They're not really giving a buff that I can utilize maybe right then. I still think this would probably be fine as like a one of. I don't know that I would run 2. Maybe there's a certain style of aggressive deck where you would want to. But yeah, nothing to write home about. Nightshade Interceptors, give 1 range attack and +2 health to your vehicles, 2 energy. This is actually pretty efficient. I feel like I never played this card, but I also feel like it costs 3. Maybe I'm wrong about that. You guys can let me know. +2 health. I mean, this is... I believe it's very similar to the one in Orks that gives +2 health. I think that costs I think it costs 2 as well. The problem is, I don't know how many early vehicles you're able to set up into this. But again, I think you're getting a good bang for your buck here. So that's kind of my 2 cents there. Ranger, do not like this card. Obviously, it gets instantly cleared. Camouflage doesn't really matter. Sniper doesn't really matter. And we're going to talk about why in a second. Waystone, yeah. I just think 2 energy for this is not enough. I think 1 energy for that other guy, you actually get quite a lot because it also has Shuriken. If this had Shuriken, we'd be having a different conversation. But I don't think Camouflage matters on a 2 health card. Yeah, I just don't think Ranger is it. Warlock. I think this is a 2 energy card that's probably very worth it. You got the Waystone, but also 1 Waystone, obviously pretty easy to set up. Give +1 range attack and +1 health. And health is a very valuable stat. Pretty much always, because it really does affect how the board plays out. Very efficient, right? So it'll be a 3-3-3-3. as long as you have a Soulstone. And that Warlock, especially starting out, especially if you're going to go wide with Eldar, which you can, especially with Madrell Galen. Sorry if I'm butchering that name. Warlock's solid. Banshee Mask. Again, I would say this is pretty solid. Dealing 3 damage for 3 energy is like fine. And it also, you also have the option to stun it. And I do think that's, you see the Banshees flying in. I do think that like playing 1 or 2 of these is good. Shroud Runner. This is the kind of card I want with Sniper. It's flying, it's flank, it's sniper, it's 2 health. It's gonna get cleared, but it will 100% get you the value up front. You're going to play this only when you're going to snipe something with it, right? Which is sick that they're doing this on the back of like a super cool bike, like jet bike thing. You'll snipe that guy, and then yeah, it's going to die. But that's it. Again, it's like a removal spell on a body. Generally, that's pretty good, and that's why you don't run the other guy that we won't even mention his name. Swooping Hawk did get changed. I believe it had Shuriken back in the day. 3 energy for 3. Okay, 2/3 Waystone flying. I think it was probably similar plus Shuriken. Shuriken just really changes combat quite a lot, as you probably know if you've ever played against Eldar. It's fine. It's not super exciting, but it's totally possible. Definitely less exciting than I think it used to be. Wild Host. Well, we were just kind of talking about the Ultramarines and how they do this. So you get 2 vehicles. So you're drawing 2 things that you know can impact the board. And they cost 1 less. Again, you're able to get cards outside of your collection. Because you're creating these 2 random Samhan vehicles. I think probably most Eldar decks should be playing it. Right? Whether you get the Fire Prism, which is like insane in the back. And I think that costs 7, but it would cost 6 with this. Or you're getting some of the little speeder bike guys that can just kind of clean up the board early. I think Wild Toast is pretty solid. Blade Storm. Give Shuriken 2 to your units. I did lose to this the other day. Yeah, if you're going wide, I think Blade Storm's pretty good. Other than that, not super excited to play it. Eldritch Storm. If I can always pound some advice into my viewers' heads while they're trying to enjoy it and play this game, you gotta have AoE answers. And Eldritch Storm is where it's at. 1 to 3 damage to all enemies for 4. Yes, there's the randomness component, but then you look down, you use your 2 Waystones, you do it again. Definitely play at least 1. I would just probably play 2. This thing can potentially, on the top end, obviously, you get lucky, you deal 6 damage to an enemy or more than that. But yeah, Eldritch Storm just, I think, should be an auto-include, unless the meta gets in, I guess, like a super control-y place and no one's going wide, but I just doubt that. Howling Banshee, we talked about it because it had been downgraded to a rare. This card's just excellent. Just put 2 of it in your deck, you're not going to be disappointed. Spirit Seer went from a 4-drop to a 5-drop. I actually sort of like the Apothecary. I feel similarly that this is better. The 5 health breakpoint matters a lot. You've already got something that's buying you time with the Wraith Guard. And it's a 2-for-1, obviously. You get to play this and that. 5 is starting to get pretty beefy. It's not hard to see a world in which you can maybe take 10 from this card. Yeah, I think Spirit Seer is great. I would probably play 2 of it. Same thing with Vengeful Wraithblade. Not hard to set up, right? Yes, you get punished on the range side. 6 health, really beefy. But when you get the 2 Waystone or the Spirit Stones, which is not hard to do, and armor 2 and flank. This thing just comes in, hits something in the face with its huge axe, and sticks around with Vanguard and armor. I don't think I've ever been disappointed by Vengeful Wraithblade. So I think that's an excellent card. Crimson Hunter used to be a 5-drop. Now it's a 6-drop. 6 health, 5 attack. Obviously, it's got no melee. Deal 3 damage to an enemy. If it has flying, deal 6. I don't think I was ever really disappointed by Crimson Hunter. You're getting a lot up front, right? Baseline comes in. Worst case scenario, you hit something for 3. And then, I guess if they have a really good flying unit, they can punch you back, like completely one-sided without retaliation. But that doesn't happen a lot, I feel like. So I think Crimson Hunter you can't really go wrong with. Falcon, just a big pile of stats. 6 energy, 6 health, flying, really underwhelming stat, but Shuriken 3. The fact that you can kill a unit for 3 for free, take no damage back, you have to respect Shuriken. And sorry, I probably didn't even explain it. When attacking, deal X damage to the target before the attack resolves, meaning you're dealing 3 one-sided damage, and then retaliation would happen. So why Shuriken is so good is that you can set it up, right? Your Warlord can attack something reduced by 2 health. Another unit can do that. And then you hit with your Shuriken unit, it takes no damage and it kills their card. So Falcon, although is probably one of the more underwhelming late game vehicles, it still just packs a huge punch. So you can't really go wrong. But of course, then there's Fire Prism, which to me, I would say is strictly better, although it comes in later. Doesn't have Shuriken, but it's got generally better stats, and then it's dealing 3 damage to an enemy immediately. And I just think rally abilities that are doing something that allows you to maybe stabilize or turn the corner are worthwhile. I think both of these cards serve their purpose, and they're at different energy rates as well, and they're both playable. But Fire Prism, I think you're getting a little bit more upfront bang for your buck. Because if it dies or trades with something, you still got that 3 damage. If this just dies, you got nothing. You spent 6 energy for nothing. And I think it is good to really think critically about these sorts of cards. Nemezer, totally fine. Necron Warlord, not much to say there. Extermination Protocol, 1 energy, 2 damage. And when you think about how Necrons have so many artifice abilities, which is do something when you play a stratagem, playing 1 energy to play a stratagem, great. Doesn't replace itself like the one in Ultramarines, but it's 1 cheaper. And the reason they don't do that is because Necrons are already getting so much advantage from their artifice triggers. At least that's design-wise, that's what I would assume. Reconstitution Protocol, another cheap stratagem. Choose a friendly troop that died this game, put it into your hand. Obviously, it's a lot less good than being able to reanimate something on the spot, like on the board. But I still think this is fine. Not the most impressive, but it's a 1-for-1 and it's pretty cheap, and it activates your cards that care about stratagem. Canoptech Plasma Sight. I'm just gonna take a drink of water and mute myself for a sec. We're doing it. All right. Flying, 2 energy, 3 health. Good break point so far. Terrible attack stats. When you deploy your troop with Frenzy, give a +1 melee attack and 1 ranged. I don't think Frenzied deck is a thing, from what I can tell. I could definitely be wrong. Go prove me wrong. I don't like this card. I don't think I ever did. So, yeah, probably wouldn't recommend it. I think Frenzied is very weird. So this should explain it. This unit attacks by itself at the start of your turn. The randomness thing is not good generally. And yeah, you're getting +1 melee attack and ranged. I think if this was +1 attack or ranged and +1 health, this would be a card. But the double attack stat is just not enough to make that card good, in my opinion. So, okay, moving. Yeah, I just want to make sure I didn't skip anything. Gauze Warrior, don't like it. It's really easy to kill, and yeah, sure, you get to live the dream if it comes back as a 4/4. I think there are definitely better 2-drops, but again, you're free to play. If your budget, I think this is fine. You're not going to really lose too much putting that in your deck, and you have the potential for the upside. Protection Protocol, this is great, I think. Right, so it's give 3 health and Vanguard, which is definitely, it's strictly better than the 2 energy Vanguard card out of Ultramarines, because you're not getting any health with that. You're just getting Vanguard, and that's it. This is 3 health or Vanguard or reanimate a friendly Remnant. I think this card's great. Remnant is just like a keyword on most Necrons, where if they die, you have an opportunity on your turn to resurrect them. If you don't, then they permanently die. So you can get some sweet card advantage out of Protection Protocol. I think the card's really good for what you're getting. On the other hand, Disruption Blades is not. Giving +1 melee attack to your troops. Sure, you can go off of Scarabs with this, I guess. 3 energy for +1 melee to your board. No. I don't think you want to be playing this card. Wow, we're really like, the pendulum swings and swings back. Gauss Immortal, however, is probably one of the best 3-drops. 4 health, 3 energy, and its stats are okay. Like, it's, obviously its melee attack stats pretty bad, but its range is pretty solid, right? 3. But it's a remnant, and it has regen 2. So if you're not dealing 4 up front to this, and then you even have the potential to bring it back with remnant, what this thing just does is it sits there, it hits your opponent for 3, you take 2 damage, and then it heals the 2 damage. Gauss Immortal, I think, is just a highly efficient card for what you're investing, energy-wise. I think you should be playing 2 of it. No doubt. Tombblade. I think this is another one that maybe up front you might not think is that good, but it is. Flying, flank, good combo, fine. It's going to take out something with, potentially 3 health or 2 health, and maybe stick around to tell the tale. But also it's got Remnant. So maybe there's a way for you to punch something, trade, and then get it back with Remnant. And then attack again, potentially, because it'll have flank again. So I like Tombblade, generally. Curse of Farron, this actually, I think, used to be 5. Now gives vulnerable 4 to all enemy troops. This just means that most troops are going to die to anything. You still may have to take the damage up front, but it just means that they're all very, very susceptible, because it's a permanent debuff on whatever's in play. Except for your Warlord, of course. That would be absolutely broken. Yeah, I think probably 1 of this. I don't know that you need 2, but I think 1 is it's sort of like a board clear in a sense. Psychomancer, definitely one of the solid Artifice cards. You're getting that 5 health for 4, which is a solid break point. Also pretty decent stats in terms of attack. Artifice, stun a random enemy troop. Just when you're able to play stuff up front that's like a pretty good body, and just slam like a stun ability, it just really allows you to stabilize or kind of turn the corner and start controlling the board. If this thing doesn't die, it's going to run away with the game, because you can trigger Artifice multiple times, whereas Codex, you can only trigger once, right, with the Judiciary, or potentially twice if you have the refill energy card. This is just could go off a million times, or not a million, but a lot. You get the picture. Okay, this is a frenzied card I would play. Why? Scorptech Destroyer comes into play. It's got Remnant, Frenzied, and Flank, but this is the most important part. It's got Flank, and it's got 5 attacks. So you're paying 4 energy. It's got 4 health. You're going to slam into something that first turn and kill it. And then, sure, it's going to probably die the next turn, or it'll die on your opponent's turn, right? It's got 0 range, and it's probably going to take at least 2 to 3 damage. But you've kind of gotten your removal spell on a body out of this card. So I think Scorptech Destroyer is probably one of the better frenzied cards, in my opinion. Doom Scythe, I think, is also totally fine stat-wise. 5 health, good health. Definitely hefty in the range department. Flying, flank. Just really good stats together, right? Or really good keywords. So it's just going to come in, snipe something. They're going to have to trade some health on it. Totally fine card. Self-destruction. Obviously, you can't, it goes without saying, you cannot put this in your deck if you're not running a Scarab strategy. It is a good way to set up, kind of the quote, like the end game for the Scarab deck. And maybe this is a little crazy to say. I don't think Scarab, like all-in Scarab strategies, are where it's at for Necrons. It's super annoying. I remember battling with it often. But it takes setup, and it's just not always going to happen. I just don't think that it's the main concern when I think about Necrons. But this sucks when it hits, I'll tell you that. So obviously we're going kind of that Scarab route. Maybe playing 1. I guess if you're super all-in, I guess you could play 2. But I don't know if that's what you want to be doing. Also very cool art on that card. Hexmark Destroyer. Remnant, Frenzied, Artifice, deal 1 damage to all enemies. Okay, so you get something up front. It also hits pretty hard in the range department. But I don't like these frenzied cards unless you're getting upfront, like significant upfront value, because it's just going to kind of, your opponent gets to play around this to some degree. Whether they just stick like a big sort of Vanguard card in front, or even a small one, and then this has to attack it because it's Vanguard. I don't love this card. I probably wouldn't play it, but like in terms of stats, it's not that bad. Is kind of, I guess, where I'll land on that. Royal Warden, this is one of the new ones. Deal 3 damage to an enemy, 2/6. They switched it from, they kind of changed one of the other cards, if I'm not mistaken. I think this card's, I prefer this as a 6-drop. I can guarantee maybe getting to attack what I want to the following turn, and it's dealing 3 damage up front. So if you're literally side by side comparing these cards, play Royal Warden for sure. Scarab Swarm, I always felt like this card was a massive problem. 8 health for 6. You read that right. Does have 0 range attack, and its attack is tied to itself, but it's got regeneration 3. So if you're not killing this thing in one fell swoop, it's not dying, and it's gonna keep punching you in the face. So I think Scarab Swarm is just the real deal when it comes to 6-drops for the deck. Scorptech Lord, Remnant, Frenzied, Artifice, give +2 melee attack to your units with Frenzy. I know that it seems like there's a little bit more support for Frenzy within Necrons than there used to be, but I don't think Frenzied is what you want to be playing. Maybe you can make it work. Maybe I'm super off on this, but 888, okay, yeah, you got a pile of stats and like a little bit of upside maybe, but like I think you just get to ignore this and it's not reliable. So Vanguard just really like hoses this kind of thing. So I just think that's where it's at. Oh my god, we're in the home stretch. We got 2 more. All right. Chaos. Harkin, definitely probably the weakest Chaos Warlord. But honestly a pretty good starter one because of his ability is definitely relevant for combat. So I don't hate it. Chaos Spawn, I really can't think of a reason you'd put this in your deck. And the reason is it's super conditional and you're not getting a lot here, right? If you think about what Eldar gets at 1 energy, and even Octavio Infiltrator, stuff like that for Ultramarines, to attack 1, this is just trading with a 2 health thing for 1. Sure, you could throw a Mark of Chaos on it, and it seems kind of bad. This thing's just gonna die. So I don't really think there's a reason to be playing Chaos Spawn. I guess if you really need a 29th or 28th card, you could play it, but whereas 2 energy, Chaos Sergeant, get a Dark Pact, right? And you get to choose. A lot of times I think people go for Camouflage or Regen. That's great. 2 energy for a 3 health with Regen, or 4 health, 2/1, or maybe you need a Vanguard for that moment. I think Chaos Sergeant is great, and he's cheap. And really, what you want to do, especially with Abaddon, is just have cheap, sort of efficient units that you can play, and then slap a Dark Pact on. So, Rubric Marine. A lot of people probably already know about this combo, right? There's a combo with Skeins of Fate, and I think there's like 1 or 2 other cards. Whenever you draw a card, he gets a Dark Pact of Fate, which is the +2 health and Camouflage. Once this thing, if it's able to go off, like if it does not die the turn it's played, it's just probably going to win the game. So Rubric Marine, I think, for those more, and I think a lot of Chaos decks kind of have to build more of this like tall, like put a bunch of buffs on one thing. And the fact that it has Camouflage does allow for it not to just get taken out by like Inspired Retribution or something like that. So I do think Rubric Marine is better than he looks when you combo him with other cards that sort of set him up. Traitor's Hate, especially with Harkin, I think the Traitor's Hate actually goes up a bit of value because it deals 2 damage to all units, and then he's able to blast out another 2. So it's kind of like a pseudo 4 damage with your Warlord. Also, love the Terminator. Is that a Terminator? Chaos Terminator? I think it is. I'm usually wrong about these things, but it looks super cool at the back. I think Traitor's Hate is maybe not like the most necessary card, but it's good anti sort of go wide strategies, and I think with Harkin it goes up a little bit in value. Yeah, because it is 2 damage to all units, so you got to be careful. Corn Berserker, 4 health, 3 energy, not bad. 4-1, definitely huge in the melee department. When an enemy dies, gain a Dark Pact of Blood. So ideally, you are setting this up. And then it gets another +2 attack and Vanguard, so it just becomes this. Although it's relatively easy to clear, they might have to take some damage to do it. I think it's a fine card. It's not the end-all be-all, certainly. It's pretty clearable if they use one kind of spell for it. But if they don't, and sometimes at certain points in the game, you just need something with Vanguard, and this does a pretty good job of that. Plague Marine, on the other hand, Dark Pact of Resilience, regeneration is just a huge, huge problem, and you get the +1 health up front. So when a friendly troop dies, gain a Dark Pact of Resilience, so it's going to get 5 health and regen. Yes, it's a little weak in terms of melee, but it's just really easy for this thing just to go off and just not stop going off. So I think Plague Marine just probably should be in your deck. Now, Skeins of Fate. Give stealth to a friendly troop. Draw a card for each pact on it. Right? So if you get a pact or two, right, on your Rubric Marine, right, it's got the +2 health and camouflage, then you get the Skeins of Fate giving it stealth so they can't kill it with a combat-based ability. And then you draw more cards, which gives it more health, right? And then there's another card that'll just buff it for how many Dark Pacts it has, and GG. So, and that is a real strategy. I at first thought it was a meme, but no, Skeins of Fate is a scary, scary card when it comes to Rubric Marine, for sure. Host of Chaos. Draw 2 for each troop drawn. Create an Abaddon's copy of Abaddon's Chosen, which is give a Dark Pact to a friendly troop. I think I'd rather just be running Skeins of Fate in terms of drawing cards. I think Host of Chaos probably as a one-of is fine, and I think starting out it's totally fine. But 4 energy is, yes, you could potentially draw 4 cards for 4 energy effectively, but you can't guarantee that. And yeah, it's like a little costly. But I guess if this were 3, it would be straight up like too good. So I kind of get that. Warp Town. This guy. Talk about stealth units that are scary. It's got 6 attack, 5 health. It's stealth. You throw some Dark Pacts on it, and this thing just goes to town. Also, it has I think it still has like one of the cooler voice lines, just like "strike from the warp," which maybe not the best impression, but very cool card. And I genuinely think it's pretty good. Bringer of Decay. Talk about generally good. It's just a pile of good stats and a really good keyword. Vulnerable means that when this unit is damaged, it receives an additional X damage, and vulnerable is 1. So it just means everything has essentially 1 less health every single attack that card has to endure. So Bringer of Decay is a huge problem with this sick, I think it's a plasma pistol. This card's just really, really good. And I think you'd be happy to play absolutely at least 1 and probably 2. Sorcerer, another 5-drop you kind of have to answer. So it's 5 health, pretty good attack stats, and then you're going to get a random power, so either Diabolic Strength, Infernal Gaze, or Unhallowed Gifts. These are all from Sylar, is that his name? So yeah, it's just a 5-drop that draws you a free card. It's great. So yeah, I think Sorcerer is totally good to run, and if your opponent doesn't answer, it's going to be a problem. Child of Torment. I think used to be a 5-drop, now is 6, now has more health. I do think that this benefited from the health stat, because it's whenever a unit receives damage, gain +1 range. This thing can go crazy. It's already got 6 ranged, but the fact that it has more health means that it's harder to get off the board, and therefore you're able to maybe combo off and really just get absolutely destroyed by a huge Child of Torment with their plasma pistol. So I think this card is totally like pretty threatening, honestly. Ooh, and now we come to probably the best reason to play Chaos. Helldrake Strike. This thing hits like a truck or like a dragon, whatever this is. Deal 3 to 6 to 3 random enemies. Sure, you can whiff. It's happened against me as well. And I'm like, thank God it whiffed. But 6 damage to targets for 6. This is just really good board clear. If you're controlling the board well, and they've only got 2 threats, then it's hitting everything on the board plus the Warlord. So I just think that Helldrake Strike is always what you're hoping not to see. Like you're crossing your fingers at turn 6 against Chaos because you got to fight for the board because they're going to be playing their stuff and buffing it. So I just think Helldrake Strike is just it's brutal. It's always good for the most part. Unholy Smite, I've tried this card. I don't think it's where it's at. So it deals 6 to a random enemy. Random, not good. It does cost 1 less for Dark Pack. Obviously, you want this Lightning Bolt from the guy who's, I think he's an Epic, to hit their Warlord. You would want to guarantee that, set that up. I don't think this is a card. Like, sure, you can play it in your deck when you start out, but I think you're going to quickly find a replacement. Hellbrute, kind of the same critique of all the cards, right? It doesn't have Vanguard, but it does have Armor 2, and it's got 7 health, and it's got decent attack stats. They can't really ignore this too much, unless they've got unconditional removal. And whenever a friendly troop receives a Dark Pack, it does deal 1 damage to a random enemy. I do think up front this is not quite good enough, but I think as a top end, especially starting out in a Chaos deck, I think it's fine. I would play it. Chaos Lord, whenever you deploy a troop, give it a random Dark Pact. 9 health, huge attack stats. I don't really want to pay 8 for this, but I think you can, and you're not going to be like horribly upset about it because you're going to get value. But again, they can just kind of look at this and ignore it. Man, they all have these sick plasma pistols, I'm realizing. And a sword, I guess, for that hand-to-hand combat. Possession. I think I tried this out a little bit. I don't think I really liked it. Double the melee attack and health of a friendly troop. Obviously, if you're kind of doing the all-in like combo damage strat with Chaos Marines, then sure, you could get a unit that has like 40 attack or something insane with this kind of thing. But again, this has to affect, in order for this to affect the board, you have to have a board. So generally, I don't think, a rule of thumb, I would say, like, unless it's really giving you something up front that's not terribly hard to set up, it's probably not good enough. So if you're looking at top end, I would look at Hellbrute and Chaos Lord. I would not look at Possession. Is kind of my perspective. And last but not least, Tyranids. Servigon, I think totally serviceable. Warlord, not much to say there. Circle the Prey. Alright, give stealth to a friendly troop. Why do we care about this card? We care about it because of Synapse. Stealth to multiple troops could be bad, could be good, but probably is going to be good for you. And Circle the Prey, I think, is just, it's 1 energy. It's really, really cheap. It's the same as the Eldar, except that you've got Synapse in your tribe. So that's pretty great. So I think in Circle the Prey, you could run 2 of. I'm not huge on that, but I think 1 of could be great. Spore Mine, I don't think you're playing this thing on its own. There are plenty of things that create Spore Mines. I guess you could try and do like a Spore Mine deck. But this thing's just gonna die, right? It's gonna die to their Warlord for free. So I don't think you want to do that. Adrenaline Surge, +2 melee, +2 range to a friendly unit. 2 energy to do that. Synapse makes this good. Got their little guns and they're screaming. Yeah, I think you're probably going to run this in a Synapse deck. Maybe 1 copy, maybe 2. I'd be inclined to go towards 1. Again, I think health is one of the more important stats instead of attack, but it certainly can deal a lot. Bounding Leap, kind of a different brand of this, right? Again, all of these are cards for Synapse. Give Blast 2 to a friendly unit. Obviously, you're going to get more than that. I'd probably play 1. I don't think I'd play 2, but I'd probably play 1 of that card. Hyper Adaptation, choose an effect, give it to. This card was always good. The fact that you look at 3 options. Also, someone said this in a recent video. I'll try and do this in the keyword as well. When it says choose an effect, I think it's always 3 options. It's never more than that. Probably would be a little too broken if it was outside of 3. So they tend to stick to the sort of the rule of 3 with a lot of these cards. This could be armor, this could be health, this could be attack. I think Hyper Adaptation is one of those Synapse cards you probably want 2 of, if I'm not mistaken. Nuclear Spore, totally fine. Kind of like early interactive, gets rid of some stuff, right? It's got the Blast 2 and then it's going to die. It's got a good 3 health, so it's a little harder to kill. Might have to spend, a card plus an attack to kill it. I think it's solid 2-drop recruit. Toxic Miasma. Blind 2 enemies for 3. I don't think you want this. This is a little too do nothing for me. Maybe you could play 1. But I don't think I ever thought about playing this card. Maybe I'm crazy for that. Yes, it's blinding 2 enemies, but it's just like doesn't really do anything on the board. So I don't think I really would recommend it. Ooh. Now we come to a staple Tyranid rare. Tyranid Warrior, 3/3/3, 4 health, Synapse. This is your other Synapse enabler that's cheap, aside from the newest card that they printed that I was like, that card is sick. You're just going to run this. If you have anything that synergizes with Synapse, Tyranid Warrior is excellent. You always want it in your hand. It's 4 assist. I think this card was always pretty impressive when I was playing Tyranids, especially when you consider the defense card, which lowers this to 2 instead of 4. And then you can set up an Artifice to deploy a Spore Mine and just get a bunch of free value. It's got that 5 health breakpoint. It's got Synapse. So I think you're probably, when you're looking at cards and they have Synapse and Tyranid, they're going to go up a bump, a little bit of a grade, because it just allows you to do some pretty illegal stuff for the most part. Venom Thrope. This is your removal spell. Tyranids don't really get removal. So Venom Thrope is it. 6 health for 4 energy. Big health pool. Destroy any troop attacked by this unit. So it's got Death Touch for you Magic players. Maybe you throw some buffs on this thing. Just venoms everything and just poisons it all and kills it. You probably just have to play this card because this is your best way to... It's your only way, really, to have removal as a Tyranid player. From what I remember. Maybe there's been something that's changed. Death Leaper. I think it's totally fine. Very low in the health department, but it's got stealth, so for the most part you're going to connect. And then it stuns a random enemy. So you just hit something for 7, which is huge. And then you stun something. I think this is good enough for what you're getting. So I would probably play the Death Leaper. I'd probably be happy playing 2 copies of it. Rapacious Hunger. This is your AoE board thing, right? Deal 2 damage to all enemies, but... because it doesn't cost 4 like the other ones, it costs 5, so we must be getting something a little bit juicy. For each one that dies, heal 2 to a random friendly unit. This thing can totally swing a game in your direction. I don't know that you'd always want to, but honestly, you probably do. Because sometimes when you're setting up Tyranids, maybe you do get swarmed yourself. And I think it's just wild that you can get this healing on top of it. Whether it's just your Warlord, right, potentially, or it's healing your units, which is really, really scary. So I think Rapacious Hunger is kind of a staple. Hive Crone, sort of following the Eldar themes, right? 6 energy, 7 health, very huge health pool. Pretty good stats. Deal 3 damage to an enemy. It's got flying when it comes to the play. I think Hive Crone's great. I will take the, 6 to 7 energy, good stats, deal X amount of damage up front pretty much always. So I think Hive Crone is a great kind of curve topper for the most part. Screamer Killer. I thought maybe this got changed, but maybe it didn't. 6 energy, 6 health, but it does have armor 1 and it's got blast. This thing is relatively hard to kill, and the blast 2 is going to make a difference. It's also attacking for 6. I think Screamer Killer is also a pretty good curve topper for the most part, especially starting out. Harpy. When a friendly Spore Mine dies, I don't think you should be playing this card. Sure, it's got 8 health, and it's pretty big stats, especially for ranged attack, but when a friendly Spore dies, deploy another. I don't think this text means anything, for the most part. I guess if you're doing spores.deck, put a Harpy in your deck, but yeah, this is not it, I would say. Exocrine, right? This guy, 10 range attack, 9 health, blast 4. This thing is just blowing up everything. Sure, if you live and you get to attack with this thing, you probably just win the game. So maybe fine, especially starting out as your curve topper, but doesn't have Vanguard, doesn't have any upfront value, so it kind of gets an F in my book. Tyrant effects, 10 energy. Am I winning the game? Strike, deal 1 damage to a random enemy 8 times. 10, yeah, same issue, right? I mean, very cool art. Love the cool double barrel gun. This thing is scary as hell, but yeah, just you can look past it. I mean, when you're getting to 10 energy, I don't think this is mattering, so I probably wouldn't play it. Whew. Okay, before I even just kind of like keep rambling away, thanks as always for joining. That's it for today. Like I said, I'm kind of building a little bit of a roadmap for the content that I want to come out. There's been like really a wild amount of support on the channel, and I appreciate all of it. And I appreciate the critical feedback. It makes me a better content creator. So for all yous out there all yous out there joining, thank you so much, and I will catch you next time.